to form a more perfect union. These Congress uno out of many one.
When in reality, out of the 535 elected officials in our 113th House of Representatives, 359 of them are white men. Out of the 112 justices of our Supreme Courts, 4 have been women, 2 have been African American, and 1 has been of Latino heritage. Out of the 43 presidents of the United States of America, only 1 has been a person of color. So go ahead and say, the United States of America is a melting pot.
When in reality, the diversity that is often praised is a false illusion created by an institutional dominated system which propagates the enhancement of white superiority over inferior races. We are a nation which once declared a Negro whose own ancestors were imported into this country and sold as slaves against their own free will could not be entitled to all the rights, privileges, and immunities guaranteed in the Constitution of the United States of America. When in reality, the entire history of the U.S. is that of immigration.
Yet, our founding fathers were of British descent. Yet today, millions of illegal immigrants are sent back to their country of origin despite all the struggles that they have gone through in order to reach our soil. Millions wish for the chance to live in the United States of America, and millions wish to become U.S. citizens. Just so lie, right of the soul.
We are a nation which once declared that any visible admixture of black blood stamps the person as belonging to the colored race, and predominant white blood must only be in the proportion of 3/4. We are a nation that created 2 separate but equal facilities, schools, and worlds for blacks and whites, because if one be inferior to the other, the Constitution of the United States could not put them all upon the same plane.
We are a nation that once considered it taboo to marry outside of one's race. We even considered it illegal for white blood to be tainted with the blood of other inferior races in order to produce bastard mixed children. We are a nation which focuses more on genetics for personal identity more than actual thought. Our Constitution is colorblind.
Live in a nation that once eradicated the spirit of Native American children through the use of boarding schools in spite of separate educational facilities being inherently unequal.
We are a nation where if you consider yourself a minority or any other ethnic group, you are a compelling state interest. We are a nation where colleges have a grocery list of quotas that they need in order to satisfy their diversity in race, sexuality, and gender. You are a part of a quota.
We're a nation where stereotypes associated with your race are perpetuated through affirmative action, college admission applications, and quotas to maintain diversity within our institutions. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
As Malcolm X once said, you cannot hate the roots of the tree without ending up hating the tree itself. We accept that the roots of the tree cannot be destroyed, for without any roots, the tree is doomed to die. Without a foundation of principles, ideas, and ideology, society is bound to enter a state of nature and eventually kill itself, because there is no common law, no common origin, and no common bond.
We cannot accept that only the branches at the top of the tree are those that receive the best attention, while the branches and leaves at the bottom are left to rot. A tree cannot sustain itself without the assistance of branches and leaves from all sections of the living organism.
If society is to sustain itself and not ensue between a clash of white institutions and underrepresented minority groups, it is of the best interest that growth and expansion be done at all levels of society. An Asian proverb says that even for a tree that's 10,000 feet, its leaves return to the roots when they fall.
Go ahead and say that you live in the United States of America. And go ahead and say that you live in a melting pot. And go ahead and say that you live in a perfect union of races, ethnic groups, religions, and cultures. But don't you ever say that you won't end up at the bottom.
because you will be buried under the same roots as I will.
If you were in the darkness, I hope you can now see the light and purity found among us.
It begins with understanding that, we're all human beings and that dignity has got to mean something in interacting with people. If we can't begin with humanity, it doesn't matter what color you are going to engage in dehumanization. So Paulo Freire once basically said, the oppressor, in the act of oppression, removes or dehumanizes a human being through an act of oppression. What he or she doesn't realize is that in that same act, they dehumanize themselves. As Sandra Rodriguez, I am currently the director of ASUN and the Center for Student Engagement. And so for me, making the transition, I thought in my mind, would be very much on a professional level. Okay, I'll transition from working with the associated students at the University of New Mexico to the associated students at the University of Nevada. And so I took the job, and 2 months into it, I was ready to leave. It was pretty rough. I want to say the first 2 or 3 years were pretty rough. I remember, I think it was the second week of sitting in my office, I felt like someone was staring at me. And I turned around and I see 3 faces, a black face, a brown face, and an Asian face. And I look, and there's 3 young women staring at me, and I looked at them and I said, "Come on in." And I said, "Who are you?" And what came out of their mouths? I'll never forget this. They looked at each other, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "Well, we heard there was a woman of color who worked here." Well, now we've created these safe spaces. How do we get students to know then that you can't just stay in that safe space? We're a community of scholars. And so then I was asking myself the same question. You can't just come to this university and hide every day. So we need to be okay with having conversations with one another about who we are. Does that mean everybody will agree with it? Does that mean everybody will be like you? No. We're in a shared public space. Therefore, the responsibility we have is to learn. I'm not asking you to believe. I'm not asking you to agree with, but we do have an obligation to learn about. You did not get sent here by your families, by your own motivation, for this to be the end all. It's a stepping stone. When you walk across that graduation stage, whether it's graduate school, law school, dental school, moving on into some professional role, you're going to be at the next stage. Hopefully, you're going to continue to grow, right? Just don't ever stand still. Don't.